Not enough people know about the fact that white boys in the NICU are called wimpy white boys. And the reason why is because they have a lower survival rate than their female and minority counterparts. And I think that really translates into the world today, because what we're seeing, the reason we're in the situation we're in with Christian nationalism and the manosphere and red pill is because white boys got beat at all their games. They literally, and I'm not saying it was my husband or his father, I'm saying the system was set up to benefit white men, and minorities and women started to fight for our rights, and people agreed we were a product of society. We should be helping society. We should be furthering, and women went into the workforce. Guess what white boys didn't do? They didn't come home and learn the other skills. So we surpass them. We dominate when it comes to academics. We dominate when it comes to college educations. Black women have the most advanced degrees percentage-wise in our nation. Minorities have taken over the jobs that those white boys would have been handed years ago. I was told by two men in my life, two men that I would have considered people I would have not thought to have said this, looked at me and said they didn't get the job because a DEI hire happened. A woman got the job. Boys, no, you didn't lose the job to a woman because of her female parts. You lost because of her brain. You lost because she's more organized. You lost because you don't know how to talk to people the way a woman does. You lost because you don't have the ability to prioritize and multitask the way women can. Women beat men at their own game. Minorities beat white people at their game. And this is what happens. The one group that is the most butthurt about having to work harder are white men. That's why you're not getting the job. You're not willing to put in the effort that the rest of us are. So sit down and let us take the wheel.
Oh my God, for Black History Month, I want to share this story that my patient family member told me. She was telling me about giving birth to her first child, her only child, and how traumatic it was because the epidural didn't work the first time, and she ended up having her baby prematurely, so her baby was in the NICU. And right before she went into the OR suite to have her C-section, the doctor was asking her, do you know what you're having? And she was like, I'm having a baby girl. And the doctor basically comforted her and told her that her baby has a very high chance of surviving because it's a Black female. And he just went on this list and just saying that the strongest babies in the NICU are the Black female babies, and then it's the white female babies, and then it's Black male babies, and then white male babies. And I just thought that this was so interesting because we just hear so much about how Black women in healthcare and in maternity are dying, and in healthcare they're ignored and things, and it's just damn, from birth we really do have this naturally just strength, this natural strength in our DNA. And I just came across this topic too because I was just watching clips of the Winter Olympics and just seeing the athletes just really prevail in these sports. It's just wow. They hate us for a reason. But I want the labor and delivery and the NICU nurses to come in the comments and just let me know if they've experienced this for themselves too. Just seeing the difference in colored children. I really want to say more Black children compared to white children, if there's a difference, because I'm trying to think of any differences I've seen in the adult ICU. There's definitely things, but I'm opening this up for discussion in the comments.
African American preemie girls, we love them. All neonatologists want a nursery full of girls, specifically, if possible, African American girls, because they do better. The girls do a lot better than the boys all through the premature age range, and it's a borderline of viability. Not only do girls do a lot better, but African American girls do the best of all. And this is not some theoretical thing. You scratch any neonatologist and ask him or her, oh, what's the smallest kid who did well in your nursery? And you'll get an answer like mine, 13 ounces and a little African-American girl. Why is this? Better gender, stronger gender, better genes, fewer of those weakening, we're going to survive in the north, we're going to have hairy skin and tolerate cow's milk formula and also have cystic fibrosis and tend to get diabetes and they live for a shorter period of time and don't make enough vitamin D, all the misery associated with being a hairy white person from a cold climate. Give me those African American girls, and the beauty part, the thing that amuses me, is there's a corollary now. You're not supposed to say, it's not politically correct anymore. It's called the wimpy white boy phenomenon. We all know, every neonatologist knows that the worst admission at any gestational age is a white boy. They're weak and slow in comparison to the girls. And I find it amusing nowadays that that's no longer politically correct to say wimpy white boy, because apparently us white men are too sensitive to this concept and just can't bear up under the facts. I think in general, the white men of the United States are doing well enough that we could tolerate the wimpy white boy designation when it comes to premature babies.
Wimpy white boy syndrome, if you haven't heard of it. I just heard about it. So wimpy white boy syndrome is this thing where with neonatals, especially premature babies, right? NICU, the intensive care unit, they have a thing called wimpy white boy syndrome where they gauge the likelihood of a preemie surviving being born premature. And the child most likely to perish from being born too early is the Caucasian male. Do not argue with me. Please go and do your research. I did not come up with this. I am just passing along something that a NICU nurse put on TikTok somewhere, and I saw it, right? And she was like, yeah, it was crazy because take a wild guess, the ones most likely to thrive despite being born premature. Can you take a wild guess? It's the exact opposite of the Caucasian male. What is it? I'm going to wait to see if I might put it. What's the opposite of a Caucasian male? Okay. That is the one that's most likely to thrive. The most likely to die. And they say, wow, you're a Latino baby born prematurely, but you look like you're and a girl or whatever, you look like you're developing wimpy white boy syndrome. That's their way of saying we think you're going to die. Okay. The one least likely to die from being premature is the little Moorish girls. Those are the ones most likely to survive the trauma of being born too early. So why is it? Let's compare from jump. Why are you are most likely to die? So I can't help but think that to me, that explains a lot. You are most likely to die. So you want to take everybody with you, right? I understand it. Misery loves company, that kind of thing, right? But I have faith that based on how your women who are more likely to survive prematureship than you are, right? Because they said it went, I'm going to say Moorish female, Moorish male, Caucasian female, Caucasian male. And then everybody else falls in between those four. Of course. Of course, right? That's how it always is. Like, it's divine. And if you know what you're looking at, it's like watching a movie. And it's like, I wish it was over.
Truth regarding the genetic differences between blacks and whites. At the core of the human brain is the locus coeruleus, which is a structure that is black because it contains large amounts of neuromelanin, which is essential for its operation. 2, black infants sit, crawl, and walk sooner than whites. 3, Carol Barnes notes that human mental processes are controlled by melanin, that same chemical which gives blacks their superior physical and mental abilities. 4. Some scientists have revealed that most whites are unable to produce melanin because their pineal glands are often calcified or non-functioning. Pineal calcification rates with Africans are 5 to 15%, Asians 15 to 25%, and Europeans 60 to 80%. This is the chemical basis for the cultural differences between blacks and whites. And 5. Melanin endows blacks with greater mental, physical, and spiritual abilities, something which cannot be measured based on Eurocentric standards.
A study found that black women's skin typically ages about 10 years slower than white women's skin. Here's why. Human skin has 3 layers: the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis. Melanocytes in the epidermis produce melanin, a natural skin pigment. Melanin blocks UV rays, which can accelerate the aging process. Black men and women produce more melanin in their skin, which results in darker pigments. The more melanin in your skin, the more protection you have against the harmful effects of sun exposure. Too much exposure to UV rays can cause skin to age quicker, resulting in wrinkles and sunspots. Since white women produce less melanin, they can show signs of aging faster. This doesn't mean that black women won't experience skin aging. It just happens at a slower rate.
Melanin is a molecule, and the concept of melanin is, it is black in its nature, and we find it in the cosmos, we find it in the heavens, we find it in water, we find it in land, we find it in everything that exists.
Here's a picture of a baby at 35 days of pregnancy, and this is the eye of an embryo. Notice that the eye is pure melanin. That's an amazing picture, isn't it? To see all this melanin is inside, and when the embryo first forms, there is what's called the dark streak. It's all melanin.
Wow, dang, brother, that's wow, brother, good golly.
So it seems that you're unaware that y'all are the weaker sex, that y'all are a literal mutation of us, and that the Y chromosome is disappearing. That when it comes to health, y'all are the weaker sex. And that's even with medical studies excluding female participants. Y'all are a simpler version of us. You run on a 24-hour schedule. We run on a 28-day schedule. Y'all have one hormone compared to our multitude of hormones. We have the lie of the racing sperm. The sperm doesn't do it. The egg picks. The egg picks because we want to make sure it doesn't pick a degraded sperm. Because as y'all age, your sperm quality starts to decline, and you're more likely to pass disease-causing mutations to your kids. Unlike the egg, which does not age like the rest of the body. It also is where the mitochondrial DNA comes from. But good luck with y'all's birthing stations, I guess. But yeah, you are the weaker sex, so I am all for that.
I just learned from a neonatalist that there is a phenomenon called Wimpy white boy syndrome. And essentially, it talks about how when they see different genders and different races of premature babies being born, white boys do the worst, black girls do the best. And because they've seen this so frequently, they've seen the correlation between the gender in the races and the favorability of black women and the unfavorability of white boys. They literally called it wimpy white boy syndrome because they just don't do well as preemies. It takes a lot more to be able to keep them alive in comparison to all the other like gender and racial demographics. So and this is literally statistically done. Like they've done studies on this where they say black girl preemies do the best. After black girl preemie, it's black boy preemie. And then after black boy preemie, it is white girl preemie. And then after white girl preemie, it is white boy preemie. And it's so funny because the hierarchy that we live in socially is literally the complete opposite. We live in a society that has had to coddle the unfavorability based upon by nature of white men, and that had to be facilitated through the socialization of things like racism, things like misogyny, and so on and so forth. And obviously it further perpetuates the, I guess, stigma around black women being strong, and also black women being able to tolerate pain compared to other races. And the thing about it is that it is 1000% true. It's 1000% true. Through epigenetics, black women tend to be the most resilient race and gender out of all of the other race and genders. And there is nothing inherently wrong with that. The issue is that it is something that was weaponized against black women to be able to exploit and take advantage of black women, especially in the medical system. And so when you go as far as to say, when you bring up things like Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood, and about how the whole intention was to put Planned Parenthoods in black neighborhoods so that way less black babies would be able to be born. Well, a large part of the reason was because they knew the inherent, tolerability that black babies in general, whether it was a girl or a boy, had in comparison to their white counterparts. And this is also why we are currently in the state of, there are more children of color being born than there are of white children. It literally just hit a peaking statistic at the beginning of this month. And this is the reason why we live in the system that we currently live in, where you literally have old, elderly white men that are making the decisions for a whole entire, world, a whole entire country, just to be able to protect their ego, just to put all of these like handicaps in place to be able to make it safe for them. Because if we did it based off of the standards of how black women, black people would live off of, they would not be able to survive in that type of environment, because they are not born with the epigenetics to be able to make it possible. They have to socialize and create an artificial environment in which they are able to thrive, because they cannot do so otherwise. Western cultures have everything beige and boring because white men are wimpy white boys. And a part of them being wimpy white boys growing up is the fact that they have the highest rate of color blindness. After that, it's Asians. And then after that, it's African Americans, meaning that the further you get into being a person of color, the lower your chances of being colorblind are. So this is the reason why when you go to different countries that are more ethnic, it's because there are more men in that culture that are actually able to see color. So therefore, color is represented in their infrastructure. It is represented in their transportation. It is reflected in the color of the houses, the way that they like to dress, the way that they might want to do makeup, etc., etc. A lot of people underestimate that most of what you see in society and most of what you see in capitalism is pretty much a wheelchair ramp for natural handicaps that are exhibited primarily in white men. The whole entire world of like westernized countries, like developed countries, they are created to overcome the handicaps that white men have. So this is the reason why in corporate America, they want you to wear the colors white, black, and blue, because those are colors that can be a little bit easy to identify, and like it's not going to be that big of a deal if you mess up those colors. It's also the reason why they don't like when women wear like heavy makeup, because it's like a whole texture thing, like what Sarah had mentioned in her video. They don't want people to know that they have handicaps. They don't want people to know that there are things that will make it a lot easier for people to see that this supremacy that they want to uphold, it is 1000% manufactured, but on a genetic level, they are highly deficient in things that a lot of other races don't have an issue with, or at least do not have an issue with as often or as common as they do. This is why they don't want like women to wear like unnatural hair colors, or why if you're in the corporate space, you have to have a natural hair color. I feel as though this is also why there's a lot of things where it comes to how people view redheads. Yeah, the reason why, you know, they get called fire crotch and stuff like that is because red is a very, very difficult color to decipher when it comes to individuals that are colorblind. And so a lot of like the negative rhetoric that we see, a lot of the rules and regulations that we have centered around color for corporate, how you have to present in a corporate space, a lot of it has to do with the fact that these are just ways to hide white men's inadequacies. Because it's so crazy, because I literally was just thinking yesterday, I'm like, who comes up with this shit? Like, who comes up with these things? Like, where is the idea coming from? And then somehow that video that Sarah made ended up popping up on my timeline, and my questions were answered. The whole entire world has to be created in a way to facilitate the handicaps that white men have. And it's just being given off as a standard, but yet no one has ever asked, well, why is the standard like that? The standard is like that because we have to assimilate to a world that makes it easier for white men. It's really that simple.
Are my teeth blue?
No.
No, seriously, are they blue?
No. I mean,
We're gonna do a test, Dave. Ready?
God.
We're doing a colorblind test.
I'm definitely not colorblind. This is crazy. I've
Okay,
my whole
okay,
life.
okay. What color? What number do you see?
12.
12. Good.
Got it.
You passed. What number do you see?
8.
That is a very clear 8.
That's not. It looks like a B.
No. What number do you see?
8. What is it? What is it? It's an 8.
It's a 5.
What do you see?
It's
Do you
a
really
5.
see a 5?
What number do you see?
20.
No.
That's a 20.
It's
29.
not. Yes, 29.
All
What
my
number do you
trailer's
see?
green, Kristen. I'm not colorblind to green. 21.
No.
71. 27. Dude, I don't know.
It's 74.
You can't see that.
It's 74.
There's no 4.
It's because the green in the corner is different color green than the other green. It's a lighter green.
Oh my god.
You can't see the light green.
15. 45. That was hard. That 4 is crazy. What is that? That's a basketball.
You're right, this is nothing. So this one was the hardest for you. So what kind of colorblind? Everyone, comment, what is this? Come here.
Wait, pause.
Let me wait. What number do you see in there?
50. I'm joking, God.
What the hell?
Men make up 90+% of colorblind population. I'm not going to go into all the details of why that is, but but that is something that you will learn if you start doing research on color. And if that is your market, you might have to avoid certain colors if you really want your logo to pop for that demographic. So there's a lot that can be research, or a lot to be learned from color and how it plays on your branding and the choices that you make with your branding.
So the question was, out of the entire world's population, what percentage is white? There are people who said 60, 80. Somebody even said 90. Do you know what the real answer is? It's 7%. 7%. That means they don't even have the numbers to keep up. What that means is either we're letting them keep it up or we're actively helping them keep it up because they don't have the manpower to do it by themselves. What if we all collectively said, I don't want to be in a place or support the ideas of whites? It would be over. There's too many of us versus them. It would be over. This is such a game changer for me. This is like the moment where I heard the word colonizer. Or even when I saw how they treated Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. 7%? They're only there because we keep them there. That's crazy! You ever wonder why less than 15% of the world's population feels the need to control 100% of the narrative? Because when you're a genetic outlier, born from a recessive mutation, with a ticking clock on your DNA, you have to lie to survive. Let's get into it. Modern Europeans carry between 2 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's confirmed by peer-reviewed journals like Nature, Science Advances, and Cell. The Neanderthals were not some mystical master race. They were cold-adapted hominins who lived in caves, scavenged for food, and operated in small, isolated groups. They weren't the future. They were a failed branch of the human tree. And those Neanderthal traits still show up in their descendants. Lower sociability, higher aggression, light skin and light eyes, red or straight hair, high pain tolerance, shorter limb ratios, and a disconnection from nature's rhythms. They weren't creators, they weren't builders, they were survivors of harsh, sun-starved environments until they weren't. They died out, not because they were killed off, but because their own epigenetic behavior, their limited fertility, isolationist tendencies, and lack of social cohesion couldn't sustain their species. Their extinction is a warning, not a blueprint. So how did they live on? Through interbreeding with Homo sapiens. And that's where modern Europeans come in. The Neanderthal ghost genome lives inside them today. And ironically, that same genetic signature they carry is the very thing they now weaponize to claim superiority. But here's where it gets deeper. Even some East Africans, like Ethiopians, show slightly elevated Neanderthal DNA. Not because they interbred directly with Neanderthals, but because of Eurasian backflow. Invaders from the north came back down into Africa, carrying their DNA, trauma, and mutations with them. And even then, their percentage is far lower than what you see in white Europeans. Sub-Saharan Africans, Indigenous Americans, and Melanesians, their levels of Neanderthal DNA are negligible to non-existent because the most melanated peoples of Earth didn't need to survive the ice by digging holes. They were already thriving in cosmic alignment with Earth, Sun, and Spirit. And speaking of alignment, let's talk skin. The light skin mutation in modern humans is recent, very recent. Studies from University College London show that the SLC24A5 and SLC45A2 gene variants responsible for pale skin didn't even exist until about 6,000 years ago. Before that, even in Europe, the original populations had dark skin, dark eyes, and curly hair. In fact, Cheddar Man, a 10,000-year-old skeleton found in England, had very dark skin and blue eyes. Let that sink in. Whiteness did not exist when the first civilizations were rising, which means the founders of Kemet, not white. The builders of Sumer, not white. The mound builders of Cahokia, not white. The creators of the Indus Valley, China's Shang Dynasty, Olmecs, Inca, and Maya, not white. So when people ask, what did white people build? The answer is simple. They didn't build. They inherited. And when they realized that their numbers were small and their genes recessive, they panicked. Enter eugenics. Let's name names. Francis Galton, the father of eugenics, cousin to Darwin. Charles Davenport, eugenicist who pushed racial hygiene policies in the US. Harry Laughlin, architect of sterilization laws. Ernst Rudin, Nazi eugenics leader supported by American funding. The Rockefeller Foundation and Carnegie Institution, they funded the research, the labs, the policies. They all pushed the lie that white was not only right, but endangered. So they legislated it, sterilized non-white women, separated babies from their parents, and drew bloodlines to try and purify the impure. Why? Because they saw what was coming. You can't keep a mutation alive when the earth is healing. When the sun returns to its cycle, when people of color reconnect with their power, when rhythm, not reason, guides the future. And now they're saying everyone has melanin. Cute. But next time, let's break that down. Because not all melanin is created equal. There's a reason they study eumelanin, neuromelanin, and pheomelanin separately. There's a reason they mine melanin from fetal tissue in animals. There's a reason they patent it, and there's a reason why, despite all their technology, they can't synthesize the real thing. So no, this isn't just science, it's spiritual warfare through biology. And day 7, we're going to talk about why they fear the sun and what it means for the end of their timeline.
The first thing they had to go out and do is kill As it relates to domination on a physical level, as it relates to torture, murder, mayhem, as it pertains to a society that has no order and arrangement, then they would have some form. If you look at the word dominance, they would have the word dominance. The question is, as it relates to honor, integrity, and dignity, is that the type of dominance that you want? If you want to create the type of society that inbred is about to implode on itself because of the nature of the conditions you've put on people, then you would have to use the word dominant, and I would use the word dominant. But if you're looking for the society that I believe is balanced within the forces of nature, then they are not dominant. In fact, they are inferior to the fact, because eventually nature is going to take back what they attempted to steal. You cannot cancel the future. You can only postpone it.